Let's understand what is being proposed here, because the structure of the proposal is the entire story. What Tehran is offering Washington is, in plain English, the easy half of the deal. Open the strait, lift the blockade, stop the shooting, sign a piece of paper that ends the war. And the hard half, the centrifuges, the stockpile of enriched uranium, the question of whether Iran is permitted in perpetuity the industrial capacity to build a bomb, that is left for later, possibly much later. The proposal is, in its architecture, a sequencing demand. First, the war ends, then separately, in some other room, on some other timetable, the parties might begin to discuss what the war was nominally fought over. End the conflict first, litigate the cause of the conflict afterwards. From Tehran's point of view, the logic is impeccable. The Iranian leadership is divided. There is, as one source told Axios this weekend, no internal consensus on what Iran's nuclear concessions can be offered without the regime fracturing. To attempt the nuclear question now would be to attempt the question on which Tehran cannot speak with one voice. So what Tehran proposes to do is, first, the thing on which it can speak with one voice. Get the American Navy off its oil exports, get its economy breathing again, get the war formally ended. The nuclear file, deferred, becomes a problem for a later month, a later cabinet, possibly a later president. But from the White House's perspective, the two declared objectives of this war from the American side were the removal of Iran's enriched uranium stockpile and a long suspension of enrichment. The blockade is the leverage. The war is the leverage. If President Trump signs the proposal as offered, he hands back that leverage and in exchange gets a promise to talk about the nuclear question at some unspecified later stage with no enforcement mechanism, with the war already ended. This is, in negotiating terms, an extraordinary one-sided ask. It is also, in strategic terms, the only proposal Tehran is currently in a position to offer or to make. And it puts the President of the United States in a position every wartime president eventually finds himself in, the position of deciding whether the deal he can get is the deal he set out to win. The White House response, given to Axios by spokesperson Olivia Wales, is that the United States holds the cards and will only make a deal that puts the American people first, never allowing Iran to have a nuclear weapon. That is the exact language of a White House not yet ready to sign. The Situation Room meeting today will tell us whether it is the language of a White House preparing to refuse or one preparing to bargain. Let's discuss this with an analyst, Saqlain Imam. Thank you so much, Saqlain, for joining us. We are looking at the Iranian proposal as we understand it. Sequences the war's end before the nuclear negotiation rather than as part of it. It says open the strait, lift the blockade, finalize the ceasefire, and then at some later stage in some other room, perhaps discuss enriched uranium and centrifuges. From your reading, is that a serious diplomatic offer designed to reach a final settlement, or is it a holding maneuver, a way to lock in the cessation of hostilities now and litigate the substance later when Tehran's negotiating position has had time to recover?
I mean, I can't say exactly what they have aimed at, but the main point we have got to understand that all the way America had been dealing with the Iranian nuclear programs for the last 30 years is entirely a different paradigm. It was at that time, taken for granted that Iran is a weaker country and cannot afford US military attack. And if attacked, it would be destroyed. So, and naturally, that was the normal discourse, or you could say the narrative of the Iran-America relationship. So Iran had been trying to avoid a war with America until 27th of February 2026. And every time whenever America put pressure on Iran, Iran would always yield to that pressure and agree to talk to America on American terms. But after the 28th of February attack on Iran, the whole paradigm has changed. America has failed to defeat Iran. America has failed, even they attacked along with Israel. So they have failed in achieving any of the objectives which they both had, stated. Number one, regime change. Number two, decapitation, and of number three, this nuclear program compromise, that, on the terms of American dictates, or on the terms of Israeli dictates. So they have failed to achieve any of those objectives after the 28th of February's war. And of course, they killed many of the leaders. Khamenei was killed. Their 43 commanders were killed, and many other civilians were killed. But they could not achieve a single, stated objective which they had defined before the war or at the time of attacking Iran on 28th of February. So now Iran has not only survived, survival while, facing the attack of military might of the world, it itself is a great achievement. But Iran not only did survive, it inflicted huge military losses upon the US military bases in the region. Their 17 military bases are almost destroyed. I won't say 100%, but practically they're destroyed, because any military base which is even partly destroyed becomes dysfunctional.
Right.
So Iran not only destroyed American military bases, it also hugely destroyed Israel's military bases and industrial infrastructure. So both targets of Iran's missiles hit right at the point, and Israel is almost, you could say, partly destroyed. I won't say 100% destroyed, but many of its infrastructure is destroyed, and militarily they are destroyed. They are not able to defend themselves from Iranians' missiles or drones. Israel's interceptors are depleted. Almost 80% are depleted. They are hardly left with 20% interceptors. So Israel cannot fight. So that's why Donald Trump went for this ceasefire and engaged Turkey, Qatar, Pakistan to continue with this ceasefire. Finally, in fact, Donald Trump agreed with the 10 points which Iran had proposed for a peace talk. Donald Trump agreed to it and then announced the ceasefire. But later on, things changed. But Iran is holding that position, which has happened after the war, that it can fight, and it is no longer trying to avoid war. Now it is in the war.
So there are two instances where Donald Trump can unilaterally pull out of any agreed framework, let's put it this way. It agreed to the ceasefire, and then it imposed the blockade. Previously, it walked out of JCPOA. Then now again, those are the same old questions of uranium enrichment and stockpiles. What is the main problem? What is the sticking issue that keeps bringing US back to Iran, in your opinion?
Very simple fact. I think nuclear issue is not a serious issue for America. Nuclear issue is a serious issue for Israel, because Israel wants to have a complete, hegemony in the region. And as long as there is a strong Iran in the region, Israel cannot have its dream come true. So, for instance, all Arab countries are already part of Arab Accord, or if not, have signed Abraham Accord, sorry. If they have not signed that Abraham Accord, they would, actually would be very happy to have, working relationship or coordination with Israel. In fact, from 7th October 2023 and onward, there is already a working, system of sharing intelligence between Israel and the Arab Gulf states. So the only obstacle for Israel in the region to have its complete hegemony is Iran. So the basic problem is not nuclear issue. The basic problem for America and Israel at the moment is Israel's failure to achieve that hegemony in the region, meaning by the complete, you could say, surrender of Iran. So they want, basically the objective is to have a regime change, and they have failed in it. So now when they have failed in bringing about a regime change in Iran, so rest of the issues are merely, clerical issues. They are not serious issues.
Right.
Iran has already announced that it will never make a bomb. and they will not make a bomb because they are already signatories to the NPT.
That's the problem. Despite that, the war keeps coming back to Iran. The two declared American war objectives were the removal of Iran's enriched uranium stockpile and a long suspension of enrichment. The Iranian proposal addresses neither now, so it has come to this. So from a negotiating theory perspective, if President Trump accepts a deal that ends the war and lifts the blockade without movement on enrichment, has he won the war, or would he accept such a deal?
Who?
President Trump.
President Trump has lost the war. I mean, it's a plain fact written on the wall. If he doesn't read it, he can't read it. He may be an illiterate, but that is a fact across the world. Or every strategist, every analyst, except those neocons or Donald Trump's, that clique around him, everybody knows that President Trump has lost the war, and the only way out is to just get out of this region. And he is going out anyhow. The problem is not that he is going to win the war. He has no chance to win the war. The best thing he can do, settle down the issues. Iran is not making bomb. Iran is a signatory of NPT, and no NPT country actually can make a bomb. They declare that they will not make a bomb. That's how they become a member of NPT. So the issue is that if they want to take away the 400 kilogram of 60% enriched uranium from the Iranian territory, well, it's up to Iran. If they can convince Iran, if they can win the hearts of Iran, if they can establish, kind of mutual trust, then it may be possible in future, but not at the moment. Iran will never give up two things now, which they have learned, which they have achieved, which they never thought of before 28th of February, because the worst thing has happened, which Iran was trying to avoid. The worst thing has happened, and now they have learned that Hormuz, which means Strait of Hormuz, and the nuclear program, enrichment program, will never be compromised, and they will never leave it. If America wants to, take these two things back from Iran, the control of Strait of Hormuz, or the 400 kilogram enriched uranium, America can attack again. And America will be the loser once again, because it's not merely a war between two weaponries or air force, between two air forces or between two navies. It's basically an asymmetrical war in which Iran is using the very strategic weapons, and they're very effective. One is the control of Strait of Hormuz. The other is supply of oil in the world market.
You've used the very right word, that it has actually weaponized the Strait of Hormuz. But do you
Yes,
think,
it is.
But do you think that any joint patrolling, any joint navigation system along with Oman or any other countries, let's say, I don't know, Turkey, would that be acceptable to US?
Well, US has no choice. I mean, the problem with us is those who are sitting outside of Iran and those who do not read Iran regularly, they're still thinking on those same lines which actually exists, or that paradigm which existed before 28th of February 2026. Now the world has changed. We are not realizing it. We are still living in the old world.
So my last question to you, Saqlain, how much of these sources who are telling various news outlets, and I'm quoting Axios here, that there is no consensus inside the Iranian leadership about what nuclear concessions are even possible now? The Supreme Leader, the Revolutionary Guard, the Foreign Ministry, they are not aligned anymore. Foreign Minister Araghchi is in effect asking the US to accept a proposal that Tehran can deliver. So rest of the stuff, we could see it later. How much of this is true?
I mean, I am not a representative of Iranian government, and I don't represent even either this American government, so I can read news, and that's how I came to this conclusion. If you read yesterday's and today's news in different sections of Iranian press, the same thing of three stages or three levels, this new framework of negotiations with America, it has been published or posted by every leader or every section of Iranian government.
Right.
Pazaran have published it, and Masoud Pezeshkian has published it, Mohammad Baqir Qalibaf has published it. So all have actually jointly agreed to this three stages framework to deal with America. And still, if Donald Trump or Axios think that they are not they are disarrayed, or America or Iranian leadership is totally divided among themselves, then they have every right to assume anything they like. I mean, we can't stop somebody imagining something which doesn't exist.
Yeah, maybe they need a new narrative. Thank you so much, Saqlain Imam, for joining us. It was a pleasure having you.